At dawn on March 12, 2019, federal agents arrived at the Los Angeles home of an Emmy-winning Golden Girl of television. Felicity Huffman, once celebrated for Desperate Housewives and an Oscar-nominated turn in Transamerica, was arrested in a nationwide college admissions bribery investigation. Prosecutors said she paid $15, disguised as a charitable donation, so a test proctor could secretly boost her daughter's SAT score. She pleaded guilty on May 13, 2019. By September 13, a judge sentenced her to 14 days in prison, a $30 fine, 250 hours of community service, and a year of supervised release. Huffman ultimately served 11 days, later describing the shame of the scandal and the split-second choices that brought her there. What began as a mother's misguided attempt to help her child detonated into a cultural flashpoint about wealth, access, and fairness in American education. How does a respected actress, long trusted by audiences, become the face of privilege and punishment in a single season? And what did it cost her career, her family, and her standing in Hollywood to walk into a federal courtroom and say, "Guilty"? Felicity Kendall Huffman was born on December 9, 1962, in Bedford, New York, into a large, complex family that would shape her sense of independence and resilience. She was the youngest of 8 children born to Grace Valle, a mother devoted to raising her sprawling household, and Moore Peters Huffman, a banker who later became a partner in a brokerage firm. Growing up as the baby of the family meant Felicity was both doted on and forced to fight for attention. In the Huffman household, wit and individuality were prized, and Felicity quickly developed both. Her childhood, however, was not without turbulence. When Felicity was very young, her parents' marriage ended in divorce, and this separation left lasting scars. Raised primarily by her mother, she watched as Grace juggled the demands of raising a large family almost single-handedly. This early exposure to instability gave Felicity an acute awareness of fragility and strength, lessons she would carry into adulthood. Though she came from privilege compared to many, Felicity's upbringing was not a story of perfect ease. She battled dyslexia, which made school challenging, and struggled at times to keep pace with her peers. Instead of deterring her, however, these difficulties cultivated determination. She learned to rely on creativity and performance as outlets where her limitations became strengths. Her family's mix of affluence, emotional complexity, and fractured structure created a fertile ground for ambition. From an early age, Felicity sought escape in storytelling. Acting became not only a passion but also a refuge, a way to transform pain into expression. Her siblings recall a spirited girl who, despite setbacks, refused to be silenced. These formative experiences, of being the youngest, of watching her parents' marriage unravel, of struggling in school but excelling in creativity, gave Felicity Huffman both resilience and vulnerability. They made her the kind of actress who could portray women with raw authenticity. And later, the kind of woman who would be scrutinized not only for her talent but also for her choices. Felicity Huffman's path to acting was anything but smooth. After a childhood marked by family instability and struggles with dyslexia, she discovered that performance gave her the clarity and confidence traditional academics often denied her. Acting was not only an outlet but a lifeline, a way to channel her imagination into something tangible. In her teenage years, she pursued this passion seriously. She attended Putney School, a progressive boarding school in Vermont that nurtured her artistic side. There, she found herself drawn to the stage, experimenting with both classic theater and contemporary works. But she knew that raw interest was not enough. She would need professional training to compete in an industry that often devoured dreamers. Huffman continued her studies at Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan, one of the nation's most prestigious training grounds for young performers. Immersed in a rigorous environment, she honed her craft while surrounded by equally ambitious peers. This period cemented her desire to act not merely as a hobby, but as a vocation. Her determination eventually led her to New York University's Tisch School of the Arts, where she studied drama in one of the most competitive programs in the country. Later, She trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. And crucially, she also became a student at the Circle in the Square Theatre School in New York City. These formative years gave her not just technique but discipline, the understanding that great acting demanded vulnerability, stamina, and an unrelenting pursuit of truth. Huffman's early career was, like many actors, a mixture of small victories and long stretches of frustration. She appeared in stage productions off-Broadway, slowly earning recognition for her intensity and precision. She also began landing bit parts in television series during the late 1980s. But these roles were fleeting, often one-off guest appearances that paid bills but did little to advance her profile. What set Huffman apart, however, was her willingness to endure the grind without losing focus. She immersed herself in theater, working closely with up-and-coming playwrights and directors, and slowly built a reputation within New York's acting circles. By the early 1990s, her persistence began to pay off. She was no longer just a hopeful actress, but a serious performer poised for a breakthrough. Felicity Huffman's breakthrough was not the meteoric rise of a Hollywood ingenue but the steady climb of a craftsman devoted to her art. After years of stage work and television guest spots, she found her first major recognition through the theater. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, she became a founding member of the Atlantic Theater Company in New York. Working under the guidance of playwright David Mamet and actor William H. Macy, who would later become her husband, this collaboration grounded her in a style of acting that emphasized truth, discipline, and rigor, qualities that would define her performances. Her persistence in television began to pay off in the 1990s. Huffman made memorable appearances in shows like The X-Files and Chicago Hope. But it was her work in the acclaimed miniseries The Heart of Justice and later Sports Night, 1998 to 2000, that showcased her ability to anchor complex characters. Sports Night, a behind-the-scenes dramedy about a fictional sports news show, earned her critical acclaim even if the series ended prematurely. Critics praised her sharp timing, emotional nuance, and ability to embody women who were both tough and vulnerable. But Huffman's true career-defining success came in the 2000s. In 2004, she was cast as Lynette Scavo on ABC's Desperate Housewives. The show became a cultural juggernaut, blending satire, mystery, and melodrama, and Huffman's portrayal of a harried mother juggling chaos and ambition resonated with audiences worldwide. Over 8 seasons, she earned widespread recognition, including a Primetime Emmy Award in 2005 for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. Lynette was sharp, witty, and deeply human, a reflection of Huffman's ability to ground even the most heightened scenarios in truth. While television made her a household name, film solidified her reputation as a serious actress. In 2005, she starred in Transamerica, playing a transgender woman embarking on a cross-country journey with her estranged son. The role demanded transformation, physical, emotional, and psychological, and Huffman delivered a performance hailed as brave and authentic. She earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress and won a Golden Globe. For many, Transamerica confirmed her status not just as a TV star but as one of the finest actresses of her generation. The mid-2000s cemented Huffman's standing as Hollywood's Golden Girl. She was admired for balancing prestige projects with mainstream success, and for embodying a rare combination of grit and relatability. Alongside her husband William H. Macy, she became part of one of Hollywood's most respected acting couples. Together, they represented artistry and integrity, a perception that would later make her scandal all the more shocking. By the end of the 2010s, Huffman had built a career spanning stage, television, and film. With accolades to match, she was not merely famous, she was respected. A performer who had earned her place through years of perseverance and skill. For audiences, she was Lynette Scavo, the Emmy-winning actress, the Oscar nominee. For colleagues, she was proof that dedication to craft could triumph in an industry obsessed with shortcuts. Which is why, when her name appeared in the headlines of a federal indictment years later, the fall seemed almost unthinkable. Behind the acclaim and the polished image, Felicity Huffman's personal life told a story of partnership, endurance, and balance. At the heart of it all was her relationship with actor William H. Macy, a man whose career, like hers, was built on discipline, craft, and a steady climb rather than instant stardom. Huffman and Macy met in the early 1980s while studying under David Mamet as part of the Atlantic Theater Company. What began as a friendship forged in the crucible of New York's off-Broadway scene eventually blossomed into romance. Yet their relationship was anything but straightforward. The pair dated on and off for nearly 15 years before finally marrying in 1997. Huffman later admitted that her hesitation stemmed from fear of commitment. Fear of failure, fear that intimacy could complicate the independence she valued. Macy, however, was patient, persistent, and deeply supportive. Their eventual marriage was celebrated as one of Hollywood's rare success stories. They welcomed 2 daughters, Sophia and Georgia, and for years, they cultivated an image of stability in an industry notorious for fractured unions. Colleagues often remarked on their partnership, describing them as collaborators who respected each other's careers while maintaining a strong family bond. They worked together on stage and screen, balancing professional ambition with personal devotion. Huffman was candid about the challenges of marriage and motherhood. She often spoke about the pressures of raising children while maintaining a demanding career, acknowledging the guilt and exhaustion that came with trying to do it all. Yet, much like her on-screen persona Lynette Scavo in Desperate Housewives, she embodied the tension between chaos and love, resilience and vulnerability. The couple's reputation as one of Hollywood's most grounded families made the events of 2019 all the more shocking. When Huffman's involvement in the college admissions scandal came to light, Macy stood publicly by her side. Though he was not charged, his presence in the courtroom and his words of support underscored their unity. Huffman, in her own statements, expressed remorse not only for breaking the law but also for the impact her actions had on her husband and daughters. Their marriage, tested by the scandal, became a symbol of endurance once again, though now under a harsher spotlight. Rather than retreating, Macy and Huffman weathered the storm together, showing that their decades-long partnership was built on something deeper than public image. In a world where Hollywood relationships are often fleeting, Huffman and Macy's bond has been marked by patience, forgiveness, and resilience. Their love story, complicated, imperfect, but enduring, added a human dimension to a scandal that otherwise might have seemed like another celebrity cautionary tale. For more than 2 decades, Felicity Huffman had cultivated the image of a respected actress, devoted wife, and caring mother. That carefully built reputation shattered on March 12, 2019, when her name appeared in federal indictments tied to Operation Varsity Blues, the largest college admissions scandal in U.S. history. Prosecutors alleged that Huffman paid $15, disguised as a donation to an educational charity run by consultant William Rick Singer. The money was used to bribe a test proctor, who then secretly corrected wrong answers on her daughter Sophia's SAT exam. The arrangement raised her score by 400 points, enough, Huffman thought, to secure her daughter a stronger chance at admission to elite schools. When federal agents arrived at her Los Angeles home, Huffman was stunned, handcuffed and taken into custody. The Emmy-winning actress suddenly became the face of privilege and corruption in higher education. News footage of her entering a Boston courtroom, head bowed, became one of the scandal's defining images. The public reaction was swift and merciless. Here was Lynette Scavo, the on-screen mother who sacrificed for her kids, accused of crossing legal and moral boundaries for her own child. Huffman's arrest was part of a sweeping investigation that charged dozens of wealthy parents, including CEOs, financiers, and fellow actress Lori Loughlin. But it was Huffman who drew the most attention, largely because she admitted guilt quickly. On May 13, 2019, she pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit mail fraud and honest services fraud. In an emotional statement, she acknowledged her actions, saying she was ashamed of the pain she had caused her daughter and others. The court handed down a sentence that became symbolic in the national debate over fairness. 14 days in prison, a $30 fine, 250 hours of community service, and a year of supervised release. Huffman ultimately served 11 days in a federal facility in Dublin, California. Though brief compared to other criminal sentences, the punishment carried enormous cultural weight. It was meant to show that even Hollywood stars could not escape consequences. The fallout extended far beyond the courtroom. Huffman's career came to an abrupt halt. Projects in development were shelved, endorsement deals dissolved, and her once sterling reputation was sullied. The irony was cruel. She had spent years portraying characters defined by resilience and morality, only to see her own integrity questioned in the harshest way. Public opinion was divided. Some saw her as a privileged celebrity who tried to cheat the system, while others sympathized with a mother's misguided attempt to help her child. Critics argued that her relatively short prison sentence was evidence of a double standard for the wealthy. Supporters countered that her guilty plea, apology, and willingness to accept punishment distinguished her from others who fought the charges. For Huffman personally, the scandal was devastating. She admitted that her daughter felt humiliated by the revelation, and she described sleepless nights filled with regret. The woman once celebrated for her nuanced performances was now a cautionary tale. Her name forever linked to one of the most notorious academic fraud cases in American history. Everything she had built, her awards, her credibility, her position as Hollywood's golden girl, was eclipsed in an instant. What remained was a single, haunting question. Could Felicity Huffman ever recover from a scandal that had defined not only her choices, but a national conversation about privilege, parenting, and the price of success? The consequences of Felicity Huffman's scandal were swift and far-reaching. In Hollywood, reputations are fragile, and hers, once pristine, became tarnished overnight. Casting opportunities evaporated almost immediately. A planned Netflix comedy she had already filmed, Otherhood, was quietly delayed, and promotional efforts were scaled back. Roles she might once have been offered without question now seemed out of reach. Huffman's name, long synonymous with professionalism, was now a headline shorthand for privilege, shame, and a mother's misstep. But her willingness to accept responsibility did set her apart from others caught in the Varsity Blues investigation. Unlike actress Lori Loughlin, who initially pleaded not guilty and endured a long legal battle, Huffman admitted guilt quickly, apologized publicly, and served her sentence without protest. Many observers noted that this contrition, though it could not erase the crime, helped blunt some of the anger. Even prosecutors acknowledged her cooperation, which likely spared her a harsher penalty. In her personal life, Huffman leaned on her family. William H. Macy remained publicly supportive throughout, appearing with her in court and standing by her in statements to the press. Huffman herself admitted that her daughters bore the greatest burden, feeling embarrassed and betrayed by her actions. Rebuilding trust at home became as urgent as rebuilding her career. She spoke openly about her shame, describing long nights of regret and the painful realization that her attempt to help had, in fact, hurt the very child she meant to protect. Her road back professionally has been cautious. In 2020, she began community service work in Los Angeles, fulfilling court requirements but also using the time to connect with organizations that assist disadvantaged students, an ironic but fitting penance given her offense. By 2022, whispers of her return to acting surfaced. She was cast in an untitled ABC baseball drama inspired by the real-life story of Susan Savage, owner of a minor league team. The project marked her first major role since the scandal, signaling that Hollywood might slowly be ready to embrace her again. Still, the comeback remains fragile. Audiences and studios alike are divided. Some are willing to see her as a talented actress who paid her dues, while others cannot separate her from the scandal. For Huffman, the challenge is to show that she can still deliver the raw, honest performances that once made her Emmy and Oscar nominated, while living with the reality that her name will always be footnoted by the words, college admissions scandal. If her rise was steady and her fall sudden, her recovery may prove to be the most grueling act of all, one not scripted by writers. but by time, humility, and the possibility of forgiveness. Today, Felicity Huffman lives in the long shadow of her scandal. But she has not vanished. After completing her prison sentence, community service, and probation, she slowly began to re-enter public life. She maintains a relatively low profile, focusing on her family and private commitments while carefully choosing professional opportunities that allow her to rebuild on her own terms. Her long-awaited return to acting came in 2022, when she was cast in an ABC pilot about Susan Savage, the real-life owner of a minor league baseball team. While the project did not immediately ignite a career renaissance, it signaled that Huffman was not content to fade into exile. More importantly, it showed that some within the industry still valued her talent, even as controversy lingered around her name. Beyond acting, Huffman has quietly supported causes related to education and social justice. Those close to her suggest she views service as a way to repair trust and demonstrate that her mistake does not define her entire legacy. She has expressed regret repeatedly, not in defensive tones but with the recognition that her actions reinforced damaging perceptions about privilege in America. Public opinion, however, remains divided. For some, Felicity Huffman will always be the Emmy-winning actress who gave unforgettable performances on stage and screen. For others, she will forever symbolize the unfair advantages of wealth and influence. Her journey highlights the paradox of celebrity redemption. Talent can endure, but trust is far harder to win back. And so her story remains unfinished. Will Felicity Huffman's future be remembered as a quiet redemption, where artistry outweighs scandal? Or will she remain a cautionary tale about how one desperate choice can redefine a career built over decades? The answer lies not in a courtroom, but in whether audiences and Hollywood are willing to let her rewrite the final act.